Welcome to Wild Ideas Worth Living, a show where we talk to experts who've taken a wild idea and made it a reality so you can too. From people who have sailed around the world to those who've started thriving businesses and even broken records, some of the wildest ideas can lead to the most rewarding adventures. I'm your host, Shelby Stanger, and I hope you enjoy this show. This is episode 53 with swimmer, record breaker, and badass, Diana Nyad. This episode was brought to you by Olukai, a company who puts a ton of time and thought into crafting amazing footwear for men and women. I have a ton of pairs of Olukai sandals and even some of their slip-ons, and I love their shoes because they're all made really well so they don't break down, and they're all stylish so you can wear them with really nice outfits and always to the beach. Olukai was founded to celebrate the aloha spirit and the waterman lifestyle, and they also aim to do a lot of good. They believe that sustainability and positive living is less about an ethos and more about the choices and actions you make every day. One of the best parts is this company is a certified B Corporation, and they do a ton of giving back to communities. They even have their own Ama Olukai Foundation, a nonprofit that helps to preserve the Hawaiian culture and the Hawaiian spirit, which I'm a big fan of, considering my grandma lived in the islands. You can check them out and buy an awesome pair of sandals or even some slip-ons or one of their new pairs of boots for yourself or a loved one this season at olukai.com. That's Olukai, olukai.com. This episode was also brought to you by HDX Hydration Mix. Like you, I'm an active person. I love sports drinks, but many of them have a lot of weird stuff inside of them. That's why I like HDX Mix. Not only do they use stevia and natural sweeteners, but there's no caffeine, no junk, and it has all the electrolytes, vitamins, amino acids, and minerals to stay hydrated and going all day long, whether you're surfing, running, or even producing podcast episodes. There's only one flavor, it's berry, and it tastes amazing. Besides being low in sugar, it comes in a tiny pouch, not a plastic bottle. So all you have to do is add it to your own water and your own reusable bottle, minimizing your impact and not adding to plastic pollution. You can even stuff it in your pocket or in your wetsuit during long surf trips or run. It's super easy to carry, it's lightweight, it's the healthy, eco-friendly hydration drink. You can check them out at hdxmix.com. That's H as in happy, D as in delightful, X as in x-ray, mix.com. At the age of 64, on her fifth attempt in 2013, Diana Nyad became the first person to swim 110 miles from Cuba to Florida without the aid of a shark cage. She'd also swam around the island of Manhattan in 1975 and done so much more. In between, she worked as a writer, commentator, journalist. The girl is amazing. At the age of 68, which she is this year, she does an amount of burpees per week that's absolutely going to blow your mind. We talk about that as well as what a box jellyfish sting feels like, her elixir for injury prevention, how she dealt with some really hard things she experienced as a child, and how you can live more wildly. Diana's amazing. Enjoy. All right, I'm here in the Cuban room. This is the most beautiful room I've ever seen in my life. In LA with Diana Nyad.
How cool are these murals?
Welcome to Wild Ideas Worth Living.
Thank you. Hey, and aren't they? They are worth living. I'm with you.
Okay, so you just came from Stanford and Google. What were you doing?
Well, first of all, I'm a public speaker. I have been for many years, but once the Cuba swim was done finally, which is 4 years ago, I must say that I'm on kind of a high-end fast track in public speaking. I'm with CAA and I'm speaking all over the world 4 or 5 times a week. So it's a time to inspire, and I feel it. It's a two-way street. I don't just stand on stage. There were 3,000 people in the Google audience. I don't just stand on stage and feel like, oh, I've got this awesome story to tell and what an awesome life I've led. I am sharing my stories, and I'm more a storyteller than a lecturer, but I see their eyes. And what's happening is, yes, they're taking in my story, but they're extrapolating. They're sitting there saying, never give up, dream big. I don't care if I fail. If I dream the biggest dream I've got, I'm going to find out who I am instead of shooting for mediocre. I see them all. And when they're done, they leap to their feet at a standing ovation. And again, it's not because they're so in awe of me. They want to get out and live it.
So I want to talk about this theme of failure, because that's something I struggle with as an athlete and as a podcaster and just in work. Like, I don't like failing. How have you come to accept failure, overcome failure? Like, what's your relationship with failure, and what advice can you give to people who struggle with, like, for a long time, I was afraid to fail. And part of the reason I started a podcast was, man, I'm going to fail in front of a lot of people if I do. And that's going to be okay, because next week there's going to be another podcast.
Yeah. Well, before we started the interview, you were telling me about this, gnarly. I just like to throw that word in for to a surfer. It's not really in my vocabulary, but you're in these gnarly waves in Indonesia. It's all guys who are used to taking these big waves, and you're on the boat, and they're all hopping off the boat and taking these huge waves, and you have a choice. You say, well, I could just sit on the boat all day. It is beautiful out here. It's nature, and I'll congratulate these guys when they finish and have a beer with them. Or do I get in and maybe make a fool of myself, maybe worse, get hurt, maybe really worse and die? But you decided, what is the failure of that situation? It would be not going at all. I try to shoot high. I want to be everything I can and feel everything I am. And if my bar is low, if unlike you, there are a lot of people with podcasts right now. It's a busy marketplace, but you decided, I got something to say. And I have a way to reach out to people who are interesting. I'm doing it. I'm going to put my voice out there. Well, I guarantee you're going to be successful. You are, but even more, you're going to grow and you're going to be successful because you're trying something that's tough. You could just say, well, I'll just write on my Facebook page and I'll see who comes to me, and it'll be nice. I'll have a couple of thousand fans. But no, you want to be in the game. And so you're shooting high. And to my mind, there just can't be failure out of that. I was shooting for that Cuba swim. Talk about epic. I mean, it truly is a vast, dangerous wilderness out there. Nobody who's ever been stung by that box jellyfish has ever come back to get stung by it again. Nobody, ever. And I did. So was that a failure the time I was stung by him? No, I'm in something mammoth. And the self-discovery that comes from that, the friendships, the science, the learning curve to the, if you're living to the nth degree, I don't think you can find the definition of failure. Where is failure when you're at the nth degree?
What does a box jellyfish sting feel like? Like, can you... I can't imagine, actually.
You honestly can't. Because
a stingray was the most painful thing I'd ever felt, and someone's like, "Oh, it's like a bee sting." No, it's not like a bee sting. So then a box jellyfish sting. Like, can you maybe describe it?
Well, just to be, purely scientific about it, there are thousands of species of the box, and then there is a species that delivers what they call the Irukandji syndrome, and 95% of people who have ever been touched by that cute little animal, it's only the size of a sugar cube. I mean, it's 600 million years old. It's the oldest body structure animal on Earth. So there are protozoa and cellular animals that have been around longer, but to have an actual structure of body, this is the oldest one on Earth, and it has got that poison down to perfection. And so if that tentacle touches, if you're surfing and that tentacle swept, you're dead. You're dead instantaneously. I should have died that night. 2011, September, when I swam into a swarm of them, tentacles wrapped around the neck, around the bicep, down the front. I should have died that night. And we had a crack ER team from University of Miami, oxygen mask, EpiPen, prednisone. You should see, Bonnie has the list of the meds they gave me that night. It's like a legal pad long. You feel poorly from taking all those meds. And they would tell you, I hope it doesn't sound too, boastful, but they would tell you, I survived that on will. There was something about that swim in every year I pursued it that was so driven by resolve that not make it, die making it, go under, make it. It didn't matter. I was going to bring the left arm up and the right arm up over and over again.
So what's your mantra when you're in these moments of adversity?
But wait, I didn't tell you what the box jellyfish feels like.
Sorry, I'm so excited.
It feels like being dipped in hot, burning oil, your entire body. I was screaming to Bonnie, honey, I'm on fire. I'm on fire. Help me. Please help me. Oh, my spinal cord. Oh, my God, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I was doing that. Bonnie was going, holy shit, get her out. Get her out. So it was a drama. It was a full-on drama out in the 50 miles from shore. Yeah.
That's heavy.
You don't wish it on your worst enemy. Well, I got one I could wish it on, but that's another story. He's dead anyway. It's okay. May he rest in peace.
I read your book. It's incredible. Actually, I'm 3/4 done. It's embarrassing, but we did this on short notice, and everyone should read Find the Way.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
An incredible book. So
I'm proud of it. Often, I don't know about you as someone who's, driven and you have a lot of dreams and you pursue them. I wouldn't call it regret so much, but after everything I do, I look back and say, I could have done it better. Why didn't I do that? But that book, I don't. I'm very at peace with that book. I put everything in it, all the authenticity and honesty I've got, all the stories, and I let it go, saying I couldn't have done any more with that particular memoir. So I'm proud of Find a Way.
I want to talk about your writing process, but before I forget, I want to go back to what do you say to yourself when you're in these moments of adversity, when you've got, from just swimming and being exhausted to when you feel like you're going to die and you have a box jellyfish wrapping around your neck.
Well, I think that takes us back to the concept of resolve. If you're so prepared, if your mind has expanded so far out to say almost anything could happen out there, and particularly in that particular ocean, that's why swimmers have called it the Mount Everest of the Earth's oceans, that crossing from Cuba to Florida. The Gulf Stream's going that way 6 times faster than you're going that way. Every moment that you stop to just pee or take an electrolyte liquid from your Camelback, you're getting dragged fast to the east, and you'll never make it. So you've got to, unlike other swims where you could take your time a little if you wanted to stare up at the stars, have a little chat with the people on your team about life, you could. Not on this swim. You got to drive north all the time with power. I never talk about sprinting, but you are swimming at a decent speed all the time, and so there are eddies within that Gulf Stream. And then the particular species of sharks, the oceanic whitetip, is the box jellyfish. There's just so much going on. Capricious weather. You can't predict the weather in that thing. It all looks good. And then you all get out there, the whole expedition, and you've waited a year. You've trained for a year. You get out there and the weather doesn't materialize and it's done. It's like Everest. But I think, to go back to that word resolve, you are prepared. You're prepared for pain, and you're prepared for discomfort, and you're prepared for the unknown. And no matter what comes, it's not like, something has happened and all of a sudden I have to dig down right that minute. I have to say, oh my God, what happened? All of a sudden I'm having extreme shoulder. All of a sudden I'm vomiting, uncontrollably, not just from saltwater take, but your duress, your stomach is just working the whole time. And it's not that I have to right at that moment say, this could take me down. I better get myself together. I better get my discipline, my grit together. The grit's set before you start. So it doesn't matter what happens, what comes your way. You're not stopping. The only reason we stop the first 4 times is, we have a team, we have an expedition, and we have the shark guys and the jellyfish guys and the medical team and my personal team and the navigation team. It's just like any big scientific Mother Nature exploration. And we get together. And when the team gets together and says, I hate to tell you this, there's no land reachable. We've been trying for the last 12 hours, unbeknownst to you, we've been on deck using our sextants and our currents and calling NOAA in Miami, and we can't make land. It's for this year. We're all going to cry, but it's over. So I never said, I can't go anymore. I hurt too much. I'm out. I'm tapped out. I never got to that point because the resolve was so darn strong.
That's amazing. What do you think of when you're swimming, or what do you sing?
Well, you can picture whether, surfing and snowboarding very well, your senses are alive. You're hearing and seeing and feeling everything. Your hands are touching the water. Well, the same would go for climbers and cyclists. I mean, almost every athlete we can think of, you're alert and awake, and your senses are guiding you and helping entertain you. If you especially surfing's not a good example of that, but if you're climbing a mountain, my God, Ed Viestiers tells me he's climbed Everest more than any human being without bottled oxygen. And I said, Ed, do you sing songs? He said, yeah, I only sing one. I said, one song where you're going for hours, like an inch at a time when it's 60 below? He said, yeah. I said, what is it? He says, I sing, oh, the bear went over the mountain, the bear. And I said, oh my God, I would go insane.
I would go insane.
Just a children's song. But at least he says, even on those terrible days, he's got his eyes. He looks over at the other mountain peaks and he's inspired. Whereas picture, you've got this tight cap when you're out there doing these long, long swims. You've got this tight cap over your ears, so you're not hearing much. Bonnie has to use a loud police whistle to get my attention. And the shark guys, they don't like that. They want to get my attention in a hurry. I've got fogged over goggles, turning my head close to 60 times a minute. So you are in the interior of your mind. Right from the very first stroke, you're not like, look, when I finish a training swim, my team says, wasn't that great, that pod of 60 dolphins that played along with us for 4 hours? I said, I never saw them. All I saw was the side of the boat, 60 times a minute. So you're in your head. And I think it takes a special discipline, it takes a special mind to, Michael Phelps has said to me, no way in the world. I'm sure my body could get ready to swim for 53 hours like you did, but I don't think my mind could take that isolation. So yeah, I sang songs and counted numbers, and you want to keep close to reality. If you don't, you're off. You're off so far away that you don't know what you're doing.
What are your songs? Like what?
Yeah, that's my generation, I represent my generation. So it's Janis Joplin and the Beatles and Neil Young and the Stones and, it's all that group. Although is Over the Rainbow.
I listen to all those songs and I love Is. I have it on repeat.
You like Is?
All the time, of course.
And you could just picture being on people just say it's such a masochistic thing. You're in pain all the time. I said, not really. When you're in really good shape, let's take a training swim. I was trained in St. Martin. So we would swim from St. Martin over to Anguilla and Anguilla back. And that would take me something like 13 to 14 hours, depending on the tides and whatnot. But if I'm out there singing, ooh, I'm hearing Iz's voice. I'm feeling the magic. I'm not a religious person, but I'm looking at the awe of the blue azure ocean, and I'm swimming over the curvature of the earth. And it's a high, as well as painful. It's a high too.
Yeah. Everybody makes fun of me. I don't care. And I like James Taylor. And
there you go. Like I might take a Janis Joplin tune, and I can hear it. I in my imagination, I hear Janis's voice. I hear her guitar strums. I hear that unique voice of hers. So I'm out there singing, Bobby McGee like 1,000 times in a row. Literally the entire song, just the way she did. Busted flat in Baton Rouge. And I'm at the end singing la 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 all the way to the end. And when I sing Janis Joplin's song 1,000 times, that song, I get to 11 hours and 7 minutes. Exactly. Because you got this metronomic stroke. And so and that's keeping me engaged out there. I'm thinking, I'm singing 1,000. I get to 682. And I take a breath and go, busted flat in Baton Rouge. And I sing it again. And so, and Bonnie knows not to interrupt me. If she blows the whistle, it's really just a feeding, not a shark or jellyfish, or, a big storm's coming in. I put up my finger to say, I'm not done with this particular, verse. Let me get to a number. So she goes, okay, she's singing. Let her go, and that helps me get me through. And I think most endurance athletes do a lot of that, but the long distance swimmers are more in that state of isolated sensory deprivation.
So just because this audience is so interested in health and fitness, and what do you eat on these swims? Like, what's the food?
Not very healthy. I mean, I do not have Coca-Cola, not to slam that brand, but I don't have any soda in my life and in my house. On that swim, Coca-Cola is genius.
But no carbonation.
No, I use the carbonation
Wow.
too. It settles the stomach a little bit, like you give a kid sometimes a little carbonation. It helps, bring up stuff, and that immediate hit of caffeine, all the things that we know about Coca-Cola, which make it a nasty little drink, are wonderful. And I know a lot of athletes who use not much. I'm not talking drinking whole cans of Coke, but I'll go in and Bonnie will give me 2 ounces of Coke, and all of a sudden my stomach settles down a little bit. I've got a little of the sugar. And I've got a little of the caffeine, and it's a very good elixir when you're feeling poorly in the ocean.
I know a lot of cyclists who use it, but they drink it flat. So what else is your go-to?
I think peanut butter is one of those, just it fits all the bills. You've got you're losing a lot of calories on this thing. You cannot replace what you're putting out. And peanut butter has that fat in it. It's got a little protein in it. It's also got a little bit of substance, so it's going to settle in the stomach. I don't want to eat the whole time. I've tried it and it didn't work. I don't want to eat for all those hours, even a training swim. And let's say I'm doing a 16-hour training swim, which is plenty long. There are a lot of people, and I mean this with all due respect, but I'm at the extreme end of the sport. There are a lot of people who train for the English Channel and Catalina Island, very respectable swims. I respect anybody who's done any of them, but they're short. Most good swimmers do in the English Channel, they're doing that in 8 hours now. So to do a 16-hour training swim, which is only one of the swims of that week, by the way, is just, it's way beyond what most people can do. By the way, and Find a Way, what I'm most proud of is the training log at the back of the book. You haven't gotten there yet, but at the back of the book, there's a long, this is it right here. There's a long, many pages, not the 1978. I lost my training logs for then, but this is like training logs of, Monday, 16 hours, Friday, 18 hours, week by week for 4 years, these long swims. And a lot of people who are good marathon swimmers who have done worthy, things, Lake Tahoe crossing, have never swum one swim as long as these that are, taking up all these pages here. So
that's incredible.
When I open this book, that's what I turn to. And I go like, remember all those freaking hours you put in,
So what do you eat? Like what else do you eat? I mean,
quick calories. Oh, I was starting to say that I used to eat only NASA type, and actually I got some from NASA, compressed gels and goo, similar to any marathon or ultra marathoner would run. But running's different. You're upright. So first of all, most of that digestion goes down with gravity. Now you're in the supine position swimming, and a lot of you stop and you take in your food quickly. I mean, we're talking about 30 seconds.
Then you're right back.
And you're right back. Yeah, lying down virtually. And so I learned from Dr. Timothy Noakes, South Africa, supposed to be the top sports nutritionist in the world. He said, take another minute just to be upright while you're taking down that peanut butter. 1 minute just to try to get it into the stomach and have it actually start digesting before you get into the supine position again. And he taught Bonnie to feed me plain cooked pasta, peanut butter, bread, things that would maybe absorb and sit in the stomach so that when you do take the gel or the goo that's super high in calories and protein, that it would have a chance to actually be digested with this other food. So, I don't know if the people you've interviewed have talked to you about that phrase, the iron stomach, but can you, while you're feeling poorly at altitude, they're feeling so poorly. They look at a bite of a protein bar and it makes them feel sick. I'm sick out there. Bonnie would have to start begging me to take that 2 ounces of Coca-Cola. So, they call it the iron stomach. You've got to figure out something that'll go down. Because you just need that fuel. When I arrived on that Florida beach, when we finally made it in 2013, I'll tell you something. I mean, I wasn't thinking that clearly about this, but now in retrospect, I think my muscles and my head psychology could have gone through another night. I'm not sure my stomach would. I was at the end of being able to take anything down.
How old are you now?
I'm 68.
Holy cow.
It goes by fast, let me tell you. People your age don't believe it. You're going to blink and you'll be my age. So I just say, go out and do it all. Chase it all down,
So those 30 years or so when you were mostly like being a journalist, telling stories, you weren't swimming at all?
No, I didn't swim at all. If I went on vacation, I might boogie board with people, but I never swam. I didn't swim a lap. So all that shoulders and triceps and lats I was in shape.
Maybe they recovered.
Yeah, I think they were rested. I was in shape. I owned a fitness business, and I did a 100-mile bike ride every Friday if I could. And, I did some badass workouts and whatnot. So I was in shape. But as you know, it's specificity, especially with swimming. Almost everything else is land-based. And so, you can be playing 100 sets of tennis a day. You're not going to be ready to swim. So when I went back to swimming, it was a rude awakening. I was low in the water.
I don't meet a lot of women over 60 or even men at 60 who start pursuing a crazy endurance sport.
Yeah, well, it's not that I started. I was deep into it before. I had a huge background in it. I was the best at it.
Retake it up.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess we'd have to research who has taken it up. I meat people all the time who are doing incredible things in their 60s. I mean,
That's awesome.
and to say it like this, ESPN, when I finished, put a freeze frame on their air that said the toughest athlete in the world is a 64-year-old woman, meaning me. But, it's easier clearly in an endurance sport. If you wanted to climb Mount Everest at age 68, you could. Are you going to play in the NBA? I don't like to put limitations on people, but probably not. You're not going to have springs for legs anymore. So it's easier to come back and be even I think I actually have been better in my 60s than I was in my 20s. I'm bigger. I'm a little beefier. I used to be a little skinnier and faster. But I think that I resist little colds and flus now better than I used to. And my actual brute strength is stronger now than when I was younger.
What's your diet now and fitness routine like?
I try to, just for me, there's nothing competitive about it with anybody else. But every year I try to find something new that would be a challenge. So this year, 2017, starting January 1st, I decided to do 1,000 burpees twice a week, 1,000 burpees in a row. So, that takes me 2 hours and 50 minutes. And it's a heck of a workout.
How is that on your knees and
it bothered my groin a little bit getting back into that frog position at the bottom. But at the end of it, I am just shaking all over. I'm dripping just a flood of sweat, and it's working. It's working your core. It works your triceps. It works your shoulders. It works your chest when you push back up. It works your haunches, your quads, your butt. It's just like if you were ever in prison, burpees would be the thing to keep you in shape. If you only had the space of your body.
Workout.
It's a heck of, now I don't do a full push-up all the way to the ground because I don't think I could do 1,000 push-ups in 3 hours, but I get back down, I get into the plank position and then pop back up. So I don't do the push-up part of it, but it is a grueling workout, and I look forward to it. Like the night before I do it, I'm ready. I drink plenty of water that night. It's like my little thing, like nobody cares. Nobody watches me, but this year it's been my thing. 1,000 burpees a couple times a week, and in a hotel room it works, and I travel a lot. So it's perfect.
That is so epic. Okay. Wild idea to try at home, right? 1,000 burpees.
There you go.
You got it.
I want to hear from you guys. How many are you doing 1,000 burpees? Come on.
So you've had so many wild ideas, and I still want to talk about writing, but how do they start? Because I'm reading in the book right now that you even try out for Saturday Night Live, my favorite TV show. You host the Worldwide of Sports. You're going to probably do Broadway. You've got EverWalk right now. You're an author. You have a PhD.
No, I don't have a PhD.
You don't have a
finish
PhD.
it. No.
You didn't finish it.
No.
Okay. You've written a book.
And the PhD is a good example of I could shoot high, and there's no shame in, I didn't want to finish that. I had swum around. I loved it. I was studying comparative literature and reading Flaubert and French, and it was fantastic. I was 20 some years old. And then I swam around Manhattan Island, and it just happened to be a big deal. It was kind of a lucky big deal. I didn't know it was going to be a big deal. It was a big deal at that time. So all of a sudden, I've had chances, and I got chances to put the Cuba swim together. I got some backing. So I just thought the PhD, I can read Flaubert on my own anytime. So I didn't finish it. And I've never had any shame over that. Let it go,
I love that you got kicked out of Emory, by the way, because that's where I went. And kicked out because you parachuted out of a building. What building?
Yeah. I don't remember my dorm, whichever dorm I lived in. I'll tell you what happened to me is, listen, I didn't suffer through the Holocaust. I didn't lose a leg in the Boston Marathon bombing, but my small cross to bear, because all of us have,
Yep.
stuff and
Mhm.
heartache and whatnot. So I went through sexual abuse with a coach when I was a kid, and it had a deep, deep imprint. I could even say to this day, I'm pretty happy, successful together, but there are trigger moments when that rage comes out of me from being pinned down like that. And so I'm leading around to saying that my childhood and high school and college and maybe even a little bit longer, I remember almost nothing because I
Mhm.
was in a whole different world. I was in a world of trauma. I was in a world of confusion, a world of low self-esteem. So, I could tell that it's parachuting and Emory is a funny little story, but I don't remember anything. I don't remember one building. I don't remember in my childhood, we moved a lot. I don't remember one front door or backyard or bedroom or kitchen. And I don't remember Emory. I don't remember what it looked like. I don't remember what I did there. If did I have a roommate there or the next college, Lake Forest? I'm sure there were great places and I met great people, but I wasn't in this world. I wasn't attached to reality at the time. And when I got into me in my 30s and more 40s, and that trauma was farther in the back. Now it's much farther away from me. So I've lived more life. I'm very in the moment. I remember
Yeah.
every little thing and I'm alive and happy, but I don't remember Emory at all.
But I'm glad you brought this up because so many people, everyone has stuff. And
Yeah.
right now it feels really magnified. I mean, some of the most amazing professional athletes are friends of mine and have called me and they're suffering. They're going
Yeah.
through depression, through anxiety. There's just
Yeah.
kind of a lot of anxiety in the air. A lot
Yeah.
of people have experienced abuse, sexual, verbal, whatever, abuse to themselves. Do you have any advice? I mean, you've faced it
Yeah.
and handled it.
Yeah.
Any advice that is to people who are going through a hard time or who have stuff and want to come out of it and live with it gracefully and not just be in fear and anger and sadness
Yeah.
at all times of the day?
Well, I'm no psychologist, but I guess what I would say is, and first there's a difference between being a child. So if you and I here were talking to a
Mm.
4-year-old, now we're talking about we got to hope that 4-year-old has a mother or a father or a mentor to turn to say, I don't feel safe, help me. But now if you're talking about people, let's just take an arbitrary age, over the age of 20, who are dealing with some of the issues you're talking about. I guess, what you have to do is you have to really be clear, all of us, that I don't care what your religious precepts are, this life's going to come to an end. You're on a one-way street. You don't get to live this day over again. I don't get to do this interview with you over again. So I want to be in it. I want to be my best self in it. So that's easy to say with someone with depression who would just say, I'm just not doing it anymore. I'm not going to be depressed anymore. I'm not going to be, anxious anymore. But there is, I think, that over that umbrella that you would say, this is my life. I got to get help. I got to talk to a good friend. I got to get the best professional in my milieu who deals with depression, get to the bottom of it. Is it chemical? Is it truly maybe a brilliant medication that I could use? Or is it just an attitude and I need to get away from different other people? I don't know, but you got to say, I want to solve this. I don't want to be this huge, enormous, obese person anymore. I've thrown my life away to it. I don't want to throw the second half away. Well, I've been depressed. I don't want to be depressed anymore. I want to love the sunrise every day. How do I get there? Somebody help me. You gotta figure it out. Your life is worth figuring it out.
Were there things you've done that were helpful in helping you figure it out? Going and talking to someone, for example, getting professional help, or was it long swims or time, or was it this idea of self love? And I want to talk to you about love more.
Yeah, time is clearly, a great healer, but only if you're consciously moving in directions you want to move in. I mean, time isn't going to help if you're going to wallow and keep eating that box of donuts every day. You're not going to be helped. But I guess, clearly through my life, I've definitely, gone to seek professional help about things. I I ran into a guy, and he was talking to this therapist. And he just said to me, she's just, you might not like her whole approach because she deals with past lives. And I personally, I wouldn't argue with you. If you tell me you have past lives and you remember them, I believe you. I don't remember any. I don't believe in them. I think when you're dead, you're dead. But I don't argue anybody, religion or philosophies. So he said, she's just genius, but she does work with your past lives, but it's sort of like she sets up what she really sees as your past life that's affecting you now, and you just go with it as a parable, so I talked with her a couple of times on the phone from here in California. She's in Israel. I never met her, and one day she says to me, I'm feeling something very strongly. Now I know I can forget about the past lives thing. Just go with me on this. It's a story that has a essence to it. I said, okay. So we've been talking about my childhood sexual abuse a number of times, and so she knows I'm feeling this. It was my fault, and I'm rough on that kid who went through it. I'm rough on her, and so she tells me this story that years ago in Transylvania, I was a young man. I was a male, not female, and I was kind of the athlete of the village, and I had a lot of women friends, not sexual, just friends. A lot of women were gravitating. They were my buddies, and then there was a big war, and an army came in, and it devastated our tribe, our little village. And my particular punishment, because the women were my friends, the young women, was I was tied down with steel. I couldn't move a fiber of my muscles, and all my women friends were brutally raped in front of me. They were violated sexually in front of me, and they screamed, and some of them died, and there was blood, and it was awful. And I was out of my mind that I couldn't help. I couldn't get free. So now the war's over. I lived. I'm not in the chains anymore, and some of the women lived. So she says to me, what did you do? Did you go around to these women friends of yours and say to them, that was your fault? You shouldn't have let that happen. Clearly, it was entirely out of their control. You held them and said, don't, a band of unconscionably brutal people came through here. We are going to go back to being who we were before they came through. And you are a beautiful human being. And because they were suffering shame from it themselves. Sexual abuse it gets into, nasty places because the obvious intimacy of the thing. She said, so I'm listening to this. I'm totally in it. I'm like that young guy I'm feeling the shackles on my arms, and I'm with her on the story. And at the end of it, I get what she's trying to say to me. Why can't I have that same compassion toward that little girl inside me, to that young woman, instead of saying that was your fault, you deserved all that. That's what the psychology is of young sexual abuse, And I said, for the first time ever, I thought, yeah, can't I give her a break? It was all that guy's fault. It was entirely his crime, not mine. But a lot of us suffer through that it's our fault, Yeah,
that's a game-changing moment. I think,
it was.
I think a lot of us are really hard on ourselves and tell ourselves things we would never tell our best friends.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful part in your book. I want to talk to you really quickly. Writing process, and then I really want to ask you about EverWalk. So your writing process, you're a beautiful writer. I mean, did you have help with this book? Because it's written, I don't rip through books as fast as I'm ripping through this book.
Yeah.
I'm almost done.
Oh, thank you. No, I think I've been a writer, and I think I will be. I will be a writer. I just actually, now that we're talked about this so much, I've just, my agent just turned an essay on the whole sexual abuse, given the Weinstein story that's out there now to the New York Times. So we'll see if they accept it. But, as I move along the next few years, I am going to write more and more, and not just about me. I like to write about other people, but I think I have some gifts as a writer. That doesn't mean that you aren't always improving, but I do think my process is imagination. I don't sit down until I've thought about a piece. A book is longer, so you're going to have to do some organizing and, put together how it's going to flow. But I think all my life I've been a writer. My mom won some awards as a writer in France when she was little. And she always said to me, you might be an athlete, but you're going to be a writer, I'm telling you. So I think there's something of I am a public speaker of with some talents, and I think I'm a writer with some talents as well. I wouldn't say I have a process, but I do a lot of thinking. When I'm out walking or swimming or walking my dog or even driving, I'm thinking of the story. Where does it start? Where do I really want to end it? What should crescendo in it? I mean, the stage, performing on stage has that. You decide, where do I want to hit that story? You're not gonna hear a pin drop. Where should that be exactly halfway through? No, it should be later. So I'm always thinking of more like the arc of the story than I am the particular words of the story.
And you've had so many wild ideas on a huge level. Any advice to people listening who want to pursue a wild idea on a grander level?
Yeah.
Where do they start?
Yeah, I just, one thing is, don't listen to other people's limitations. Here's a perfect sort of benign example is I'm 68. So if you and I were to get out the United Healthcare, guidelines of what most 68-year-olds physically should be doing these days, do you think they're doing 1,000 burpees? No.
Mom, are you listening to this?
Mom, yeah.
She's going to Soul Cycle every day and perving on David Beckham.
Well,
but
that's
it's all
so
good.
Bad.
Not
that's
so
not
bad.
so bad. But I'm saying, you know what I mean? There are these low-level, mediocre limitations that we put on all of our society. You shouldn't be able to do that. And you can't do that at that age, or you can't do that at that gender, or you can't do that. And there's just, I'm of a mind of who made these rules for us? I get real. I know what my age is. I don't try to pretend to be any other age, but I just refuse. And I think people out there should just say, too, you look yourself in the mirror. You get out of bed and feel your own body and get into your own mind and say, what do I want to do? Frankly, if I were younger now, I'd want to be the first woman Navy SEAL. That would be, the problem is I don't want to really be in the Navy.
I always wanted to do that too, but didn't want to deal with anything with the military.
And I was so disappointed. The last woman who was going for it just this summer dropped out, and it partly has to do with what they have to lift. It's actually just pure, like lifting a telephone pole. These guys who are qualified can literally go out and lift, whereas the women can do everything. They do the endurance thing, they do the mental thing, they do all of it, and they're courageous, but they have to lift heavy weight. And sometimes if you're 125 pounds, you just can't lift a 250-pound weight. You can't do it.
Nope. What is EverWalk?
When Bonnie, who's my head trainer and my best friend, and I got done with the Cuba swim, it was such an epic gratification. And we thought, you know what? People have epic in them. Everybody has epic in them. And clearly, you and I know a lot of Ironmen and people who have run, 50 marathons and ultra marathons, but everybody has some epic in them. And so we started these long walks. We do 140-mile walks. This is nothing to a lot of your audience, the real badass endurance athletes. But to most people, if we were just going to go down my block and find all the people who live on this block, most of them would find walking 140 miles, 20 miles a day something they'd have to put themselves into. They start walking 20 miles a day, their hips, their knees, their feet. So people trained, and people cry when they finish our walks. But mainly, and I know that you're big on the outdoor inspiration of the great outdoors. Mainly, we're not about weight loss. We're not about, clearly you're exercising, but it's not even about that. It's to be out in the outdoors and feel like you're traveling on your own steam. When you walk 20 miles, like if you and I just got up now and walked, we'd walk down to Huntington Beach right now. And we'd say, now that was kind of cool. Isn't that better than driving your car? Look at what we saw and what our minds were open to talking about with each other when we're looking out at the horizon and our minds are expanded. So EverWalk is it's a movement to help people find their epic. When they're walking, they might not be achieving something epic right that moment. Even 20 miles, you couldn't call epic, although we do for the people who do it. But they are thinking about what's epic within them. They're more inspired while they're walking from here to Huntington Beach than they are sitting and eating lunch.
I love that. I love walking from my house to La Jolla. It's 20 miles.
See?
And it's beautiful.
That's 20 miles.
On the beach, on the coast. Okay, we've come to the quick and dirty round. It's the rapid fire round.
Oh, dear.
I think you're ready for it. Your favorite meal you look forward to after a long training?
Hot buttered raisin cinnamon toast.
Yum. Tips on staying injury free?
Ice. Ice is the miracle. Ice plunge.
Do you do ice bath or
all the time? Ice baths.
Do you do cryotherapy too?
Yeah, no, only ice baths. And I'm going to put a plunge in my house. But there's one at the end of my street.
There
Korean
is?
baths. I walk there in a bathrobe. I look like I came out of the mental institution in like 35 seconds. And now I'm installing one at my house, 50 degrees. Laird Hamilton talked to me about it.
That's awesome. Are you into Wim Hof breathing too? Love it.
For sure.
Goggles that don't destroy your eyes.
Finis makes beautiful pairs of them, and Tier does. They're much more comfortable these days.
Do you use sunscreen?
All the time, but in the ocean, it doesn't do much good.
Any travel gear that you love to take with you?
Just reading, it would make me neurotic beyond unspeakable neurosis if I wound up on a plane or a train or a car and I was stuck and we weren't going anywhere and I didn't have something to read.
Favorite books that have helped shape you and books that you gift most often, besides your own?
I did a lot of reading of the old classics, and still, there's something that just this pleasure goes over my ears when I sit down with Dickens and Jane Eyre and all those incredible stories of the late 19th and early 20th century. And I've given those books. I've given those books to young people. Mark Twain, when my godson and goddaughter and my nephew and my niece, all of them, when they reached about age 10 and 11, I would get them a hardbound book of the adventures of Tom Sawyer, and I'd be so happy that they were gonna read those magical tales.
Most memorable place to swim?
Well, I'm lucky. Not just as a marathon swimmer, but just as a traveler of the world. I've been in the blues of the Indian Ocean and the blue greens of the Caribbean and all that. But by far, my learning place of life was Cuba. So the Florida Straits between Cuba and Florida, it makes my heart pound to stand there.
I can tell you're highly influenced from that swim just looking around your house.
Yeah. That Cuba ocean. Cuba to Florida. It's just my eyes well up with tears when I see it. I learned all my important life lessons out there. I ran into my maker out there several times and could have died, maybe should have died. So that definitely is by far the most memorable place. Now, Manhattan Island was a kick in the pants too. I was young. I was 25 years old. People were screaming down on the bottom of the battery. I breathe on the left, so I watched Manhattan, and I was born there. I sort of have a heart throb for Manhattan. So I do, not in an ego way. When I look at Manhattan, I don't think of, I'm the one who set the record. It's more like, what a kick in the pants to swim around the most famous island in the world. It's a high,
Amazing. Diana, thank you so much for sharing your wild ideas. Anything that you want to leave us with? What's next?
You guys, I got to be, I wouldn't say a close friend, but I got to be an acquaintance of Christopher Reeves. As you probably know, he fell from his horse and he went from Superman to a quadriplegic in an instant. And for the 9 years he lived in that horrible contraption that he hated as a quadriplegic, everybody he would meet, he would say, you have no idea what proverbial banana peel you might slip on tonight. You have no idea. Live it all. Live it large, live it all, and do it today. Don't put it off. So I don't like people who sit around and say, I've always wanted to write a novel. I think I have it in me. I don't know. I just, I don't want to hear it that way. I want to hear you say, I've always wanted a novel and I'm starting tomorrow. Just do it. Just do it.
Awesome. When are we going surfing?
Oh boy. I'll boogie board next to you like a little pup.
I'm taking you surfing. We're going to end this.
I would love that.
Thank you so much to Mary Turner, who told me how awesome Diana Nyad was when they did this story on her for Outside Magazine's Women's issue. Thank you also to Diana, to Bonnie. Diana squeezed in this interview in between 3 huge speaking gigs, and her assistant Bonnie got me great pictures. Diana actually had me over at her home in the Cuban room, which was just beautiful and awesome, and I'll always be grateful for this day. I also learned a ton about doing a good interview. So thank you, Diana. I highly recommend her book. It's called Find a Way. I'll have links to more on Diana, her swim, her annual EverWalk in the show notes at wildideasworthliving.com. If you're listening for the first time, you can subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you find podcasts. You can also just go to the website and stream it live. Thank you again for listening to this show. Thank you for your support, for your emails, for writing reviews on iTunes, which helps us grow. You can also support the show through Amazon purchases. And you can also check out our blog for our holiday gift guide, which offers some great books for the adventure. Just go to wildideasworthliving.com. Wherever you are, don't forget, some of the best adventures often happen when you follow your wildest ideas. We'll see you next week.